something had been chewing at them, which, as you can see, isn't great. Go on then, see if you can move it. Well, welcome to the Old Classic Car channel. Now just a quick update on things. MX-5, that passed its MOT the other week, that's great news. Anglia, that seems to be working okay. Big Dodge, I need to run that up. Little Dodge, that was out at the Crew Heritage Classic Car Show only a week or two back. I do plan to use this a lot more this year, because it hasn't seen much use in recent times. The MGB, I've been sort of nibbling away at this as well. And today I'm going to carry on seeing if we can persuade the MGB into life, or at least do some of the work that will enable that to happen. Now, I put a fresh battery on, there it is, and checked some of the electrics. Most of the lights seem to work, even the clock works, so most of the systems seem to be there or thereabouts. And the fuel pump churned into life. I had a quick look in the tank just to see if there's any old fuel that needed siphoning out or pumping out, because there isn't a drain tap on this, but actually it was bone dry, so that was quite good. So I put some fuel in. Now, it was quite exciting for a moment, because I put a couple of gallons of petrol in, which was adequate to pump up to the engine end. Turned the ignition on, fuel pump fired into life, that was great, and then I was aware of fuel pouring over the floor, which wasn't so great. There's a flexi pipe that runs from the tank into the pump, which is around about under here somewhere. And then there's another flexi which runs from the pump down into the hard metal pipe that runs down to the engine and the carburetors and so on. And the one from the pump to the metal pipe had actually disappeared. There's nothing there at all. It's probably, I don't know, 8 or 9 inches long, something like that. And it had completely disappeared. Now, I'm not sure whether something had eaten it or if it had just disintegrated and fallen off, and then a mouse or something had probably chewed through the bits, because I remember seeing a few bits of plastic on the floor when I moved the car out, but I didn't associate it with something that had actually come off the car itself. So that was all quite exciting. So the first job I've got to do today is probably jack it up, take this wheel off, just to enable me to get under there a little bit easier, and have a look at that pipe and just see if I can find the length of pipe, correct diameter and length, to replace the bit that's disappeared. I mean, it's completely vanished with all the hoo-ha about ethanol in petrol nowadays. It'll need some ethanol-proof fuel piping at some point, but for the purposes of just getting it to run and just see where we're up with, where we're at with the clutch, driving, brakes, gears, and so on, it'll do the job. But yes, I will pencil in getting some proper fuel pipe and change it again before it actually goes on the road, should that happen this year. Well, I can see a little bit more about what's going on now. Now, this pipe is the one from the tank, rubber pipe, from the tank to the pump, which is up there. I think I actually changed this one last time. So that one, still probably okay. Obviously we'll change it. But the pump, I'm not sure if you can see that, but there's the pump. And there, that's where the pipe has disappeared from. Not sure if we can see it, that one up there, that one there. So that's the outlet from the fuel pump. That goes, can't really show it on the camera, but anyway, it comes off there, and that's the pipe that's disappeared. And that's the pipe I'm going to have to try and replace today, see if I can find something the right size. At least I can get at everything now with the wheel off and jacked up. There's just a small piece of what came off, and it just crumbles up, so I'm guessing it's mainly age deterioration. I think it's just literally, you can just break it up like that, so I think it's literally just fallen to pieces. That's just cracking up, fallen on the floor, and then I think a mouse probably got at it and chewed up the remains of it. Seems to be a spot of rain, but anyway, back to the job in hand. Now, it had these horrible, nasty crimp-on clamps at either end of the remaining bit of fuel pipe. There's a small piece of it, so that'll help me when I go routing to see if I can find some pipe of the right diameter. But yeah, we'll use some proper clips when we put this back together. We won't use these horrible things. Right, well, I've had a rootle through the box of many hoses. As you can see, we've found a few candidates. Some are marked up fuel suitable, others aren't marked with anything, so you can't use those. But this one here appears to fit, and it even says for normal and lead-free fuel. So that's good, and I've tried it and that's a perfect fit. So for now, that will do the job. Obviously, we'll get some of the ethanol friendly stuff before doing any miles on the car, but for the purposes of testing and getting it running and getting it so we can actually move it around without having to push it all the time, this will do the job just fine. What I'll need to find now are some decent clips and not those horrible press-on things. Well, there we go, a couple of stainless steel ABBA of Sweden. Not sure if we can pick that up. It's looking a bit better now. Right, well, I've lowered it back on its wheels, put the back wheel back on because at least that way it's level, so you've done everything you can to make sure that the fuel is actually going to pump up. The battery's on, so I don't know if it's actually brought fuel up yet, but I'm just going to give it a crack and see what gives. The fuel pump's still churning away a little bit, but there could be a bit of a blockage in the light. What do you call it? It might want bleeding through. Let's just give it a whirl. It's slowing down a bit, so we've got ignition. So let's see. Ooh. Will it start? It's got a choke on here. It looks like a conversion. It doesn't seem too willing on pulling out. This little light comes on, that's like a choke reminder. But it seems very tight. Let's just try again. Let's just give it a couple of prods of the throttle. I think I'm just going to put a drop of fuel in each carburettor and just see if I can persuade it to, like I say, I think there's like an airlock somewhere in the fuel line. See if there's any signs of wanting to play ball. Oh, that was running off the fuel I squirted in. Just trying. Oh, the fuel pump stopped. Oh, it's back on again. Hopefully all the cylinders will kick in shortly. Oh, look at me, you made me jump. The fuel gauge appears to work as well. Got decent oil pressure. Any leaks or anything?
Oh no.
So the fuel pump's still trundling away at the back.
Have you fixed it? Have you sorted out?
Well, I've changed the pipe. Yeah.
Alright.
Just let it idle. It's got coolant in it. Let's just make sure there's no leaks at the front. I don't think there's the chokes on at all, so that's probably why it's quite lumpy. Could you pass me the little torch down there somewhere? That's the one. So. If it could just keep running enough to warm up a bit, that would be good. Just trying to keep running, but like I say, there's no chokes on, so
A bit lumpy.
just a bit. Yeah. Whoa, oh dear. Nearly. It's running on about 2 or 3.
Yeah.
It's not.
Sounds like it's not running on a couple of the cylinders.
Yeah, I think we'll just check the plug leads and things because.
Pop, 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 pop.
Yeah, we'll give it a rest now and then.
That's quite rough.
Yeah, I mean it sounded really smooth when I had it running a few years ago, but just going to have a look at the make sure the plug leads are on. Oh, I've left that torch over here. Yeah, if you hold that and then let's have a look at the plug leads. I mean they're not the best looking leads in the world. It appears that something has been eating these. They're a bit nibbled, I think. I mean, it should be okay as long as they're not arcing across to something else. That one's the same, actually. That one's very chewed. This one here has been got at, actually. Might have a look, see if I've got any leads that could go on there. Tell you what, if I fire it up, if you turn the light off, I'll start it up and you tell me if you can see any sparks around the vicinity of the spark plug caps. Because it's dark enough that just have a look when I start it up and just see.
Looking for one in particular?
No, just look to see if there's any sparking outside of the plug lead caps. Because if it is, then that's why it's not running too great. It's sounding a little bit better. Can you not see any sparks or anything? You might just need to. It might be like sticking valves and stuff like that.
I can't see any sparks.
No, it's getting better. It's getting better now. I think we just had a sticking valve or two. Got really good oil pressure. Yeah, try again. Right, so I'm just in the process of making up a blower through so that I can really well connect the airline with the tyre inflator into the fuel line. Now, I've taken one of these Schrader valves here and chopped off the end rubber bit. So that gives me that end there, which is like that. So that will fit onto the tyre inflator. This I will put into a hose, narrow hose, like this one here, which that will go in there. I'll put a clamp on that, and then that end can fit onto the fuel line at the front, and that'll give me a really good connection so that there's no lost air pressure, and hopefully it'll blow things through. That's the theory anyway. I did do similar on the Talbot last year or the year before, whenever it was, but I can't find the little Schrader valve that I adapted for the job, so I had to make up another one. Fortunately I had one in a jar, so we're just going to find a clip and put that into there, and then this can be fitted at the front. There we go, I've even put a light on so I can see what I'm talking about. Now, as I mentioned in one of the previous videos, the B had a problem whereby, I mean a few years ago I had it running, and it had a problem where you could have the engine running and you could put it through the gears here without touching the clutch pedal, and it wouldn't stall or jerk forward or anything. It was as if the clutch was stuck off, which was all very odd, but I managed to free that up. So that kind of changed the whole thinking about this, to see if we can actually get it so it's more or less roadworthy. Now, when I first ran it up, it was only running on about 2 cylinders, so I had a look at the plug leads, which are over here, and they were in a pretty poor state. Something had been chewing at them, which, as you can see, isn't great. I couldn't see any signs of arcing under the bonnet when the engine was running, but anyway, they needed to be replaced. So I replaced those. There's a new set of leads down here. I mean, I bought a set specifically for an MGB, but they're way too long. I'd have been better off making up my own leads, to be honest, but I thought I'll save time and I'll buy a set of pre-made leads, but they're not great, to be honest. Anyway, it's got a new set of leads. I also fitted a new fuel filter, this horrible plastic thing over here, so that seems to work. The original one, where's it gone, is this AC one, which you probably can't really see. It's an old AC branded filter, so that's probably the original back from the 1970s, so it's probably high time that was replaced anyway. So that's been done, but it still wasn't running very good. Now, Dad popped over a little while ago and he reminded me that it could be something simple as the needle valve sticking possibly in this carburetor, because the rearmost plugs didn't seem to be getting wet at all. The front ones were firing up, but the rears weren't doing much at all. So I gave the bodies of both carburetors a bit of a tap with the ignition turned on, and that suddenly energised the fuel to sort of come into the float chambers of the two carburetors. It did make a difference by tapping them with the ignition on. This fills up nicely and the fuel comes through down here into this carburetor and then across here and into this carburetor, and after doing that it seemed to run a lot better. It was running a bit quickly, so I've slowed down the idle a little bit, but it's still not really there, but at least it does fire up and run. Well, the problem I've got now is obviously I need to have it running for a while just to see if I can sort out the running issues. And also I noticed the water pump's a bit noisy. You can actually grab it here, probably can't see, but you can move it side to side, which suggests that the pump is on the way out. So I've bought another pump there that sort of bolts through onto the front of the block, so I need to change that, but I really need to have it so that I can have it running, get it fully warmed up properly. But I can't do that here because the exhaust is pointing straight into the garage. It just gets way too fumy, so I need to actually put the B over here so I can have the doors open, push it outside and tinker with it. So really the Morris needs to come over here, tucked away in the corner, and the B needs to be there so I can pop open the door, have it running and just basically tinker with it. So the objective today is to move Little Dodge, move the Anglia at the back there, bring the B out and actually see if it'll actually drive, because I haven't driven it. I've sort of tested it statically to see if the gears and the clutch are working, but I haven't actually tried driving it. So if I can persuade it to run long enough to try moving it, that is one of the ambitions today, to see if it'll actually drive and just try the brakes out, because I think the brakes work, but until you try driving it you really don't know. So that's the aim for today. Bit of a move around. It's quite a nice day outside, so it's a nice day for a play. That can come up over here, I can fiddle with it here, but I don't need to have that running anytime soon. I can do a few little jobs on that, but this, to have it running, it's got to be over there. Right, so what do I need to do? This has got a battery on it, just needs connecting. Same with this, just need to connect the battery up, because you never leave the battery connected. But first I need to shift the MX-5, put it down out the way, and then I can get the doors open and bring these two out and then see if the B will actually run or not. Right, Dodge is outside, so the next thing to do is see if the MGB will fire up. Like I say, I've had it running, the last time was a couple of weeks ago, and I think the gearbox and clutch work, but I've never actually driven it under its own steam, so this will be a first, so let's see what happens. Let's assume it'll start. choke. Fuel pump's whirring away. It's running very, very rich. The fuel still smells quite old. I put the choke in, but it's still very, very rich. And a splash of fresh fuel probably won't go amiss. Sounds quite perky when it's rev though. Brakes feel quite good, the clutch feels quite good. Steering's very tight, there's no slop or anything in there. Yeah, it does seem very rich and splashy. And again, the fuel is probably a mixture of the old fuel and fresh fuel, so this is what I want to do. So I want to be able to have it so I can run it up in the garage down the bottom and not smoke the place out. So that's why I'm having this move around today. Hateful plastic plates. Right, I'll move it out of the way and switch it off. Alright, well that's the MGB's first drive in my ownership. It actually feels quite promising. It's only running on about 3.5 cylinders, I think, but the other cylinder or two will probably come back to life with a bit of use. I do want to do a compression test on it sometime, so we need to do that, and then we'll really get a good idea of what exactly is going on with the engine. But I think it's there or thereabouts. So next thing to do is go and get the little Morris out and put that back in the MGB's place. Okay, I've opened up the bottom garage, and the plan now is to wheel this out. It's not currently in a state where I can just jump in and fire it up. Well, I did have it running many years ago. One of the first videos I ever put on the old classic car channel was the little Morris running. So I know it probably would run with a little bit of TLC, but for the purposes of today and just moving things around, i.e. getting this over there where the B was, it can just be pushed because it's nice and light, and that's why I like small cars, because you can push them around when they don't work. And for some reason most of the cars I seem to end up with don't work. So right, let's get this outside anyway. In fact, now I think will probably be an excellent time to drag Junior away from the computer. He's doing some video editing this morning, so I'll go and drag him out, and then he can give me a hand pushing the Morris.
That's so light. Sorry. Are you filming this? Oh, okay.
Off you go. I want to steer it a bit that way. That's where it needs to end up.
Is that a bit awkward? Okay.
Good. Push on the wheels. That's a lot easier. Well, that's the Morris outside. I've just put some air in the tyres. It makes it a bit easier to push, doesn't it?
Hello?
Makes it a bit easier to push, doesn't it?
It is very light.
It is very light, yes, that's a good thing about it. I mean, I've had this a few years now. the lady that...
Right.
Indeed, yes. Well, the lady I bought this from, she was given this on her 21st birthday in the 1960s. Originally, I think it was black a long, long time ago, but it's been green for probably longer than it was ever black. So it's going to stay, yeah, it's going to stay that colour. A friend of mine made up some sills many years ago, which I started to paint. That's the inside, obviously. And these are just held on with panel pins. So these go under here. The woodwork's not too bad, actually. So they go under there. And they're literally just pinned on. I need to do a little repair at the bottom down here. But I did make up some repair panels, which are around somewhere. Where are they? There we go. I made up a long time ago a couple of repair panels. I'm not sure which side this is. I think this is for the other side. So that will go in there, kind of. I mean, it's not too bad this side, but it's just gone at the bottom, so I'll have to use some of this, even if I don't use all of it. But that will just weld in there. So that shouldn't be too difficult. Like I say, these are the sill covers are just pinned on. So that's nice and easy, and the rest of the bodywork isn't bad, really. Let's pop that in there. So, right, are you feeling strong? Well, we need to get this up there and into the garage.
That's fine.
Yeah? Feeling strong? Yeah, yeah. Alright, you can move that if you want.
He's already in it?
No, I'll go and find them.
Okay.
I'll go and get them. Go on then, see if you can move it. This little Morris dates to 1932. Come on, your youthful energy should come into play. That's it. Nicely done.
Thank you. I thought so too.
Put your back into it. It's the smallest car on the planet.
Yeah, but the brakes are sticky.
Only a little bit.
Really? Seems to me like quite a lot.
Alright, I'll come and give you a hand.
Yes, they are sticking quite a bit.
But not before I've enjoyed watching you struggle.
Oi, okay, we'll go on this side now.
Alright, go on then. Maybe it's lighter that side.
No, there's the grass, so I don't do that.
So you dig the grass up instead.
No, but as long as that doesn't happen again. I'll
Go on then. Oh, that's much more effective. Alright, I can't bear to watch anymore.
Sorry?
I can't bear to watch anymore. Right, you're on the level now. It's a little bit easy. One brake is dragging a little bit, but so just a bit of lock. That's it. That'll do. That'll do. You winning?
Yep.
God, you'll be so fit after this.
Thank you. I think pushing on the tyres was better.
Go on then. So it gets a bit tricky here because it goes up. Right. Right, I'll give you a hand to get in the last bit down the bottom.
That's just gone off for a second time on his channel. Hello, subscribe to Car Traction. Anyway, we've put the little Morris here. Dad's just gone to move the little Dodge into there, or the not so little Dodge, but it is quite little when compared to big Dodge. But anyway, we'd already had this and little Dodge, I'll keep calling it that, was here, which meant that it was quite wide, and this car is a very, very small car. So we had to sort of lift that bit up with a crowbar and sort of move it in a bit, and then we nailed it back in. So now this is here. Then the MGB will be coming here, and little Dodge, which was previously here, will now be coming into around here.
Right, okay. So we need to turn it round. So I think it's in neutral. Yeah. So just give it a go. Alright, stop then. Okay. Just try giving it a bit of throttle. Just a little bit. Maybe it will need a bit of choke then. Okay, switch off. Right. I can smell a bit of fuel, but let's just pull a bit of choke on. Alright, give it another go. No, you shouldn't need any. Alright, stop. I wonder if it's run out of fuel, because the fuel pump's chunnering away. Is it still going?
Yeah, the fuel pump is.
Well, classic BL, it doesn't want to start now, so we're going to have to push it down the bottom. So, you know, we can't blame it, because it's been resting for decades probably. So we'll push it down the bottom, and then we'll have a proper play with it and just see why it doesn't want to start, because it started first time when I ran it earlier on, which is all very irritating, but such is life. Yeah. Anyway, we'll roll it down the bottom, put it back in the garage, and then see what's going on. Well, that's everything moved around and back in place for now. The B's down here. It's a little bit longer than I thought it was, but it's okay, because any time I need to fiddle with something, I can just roll it back a foot or two with the door open. So that's okay, but I need to have a look, see why it won't start. It's quite annoying, because it ran first turn of the key earlier on, but now nothing at all, it just spins over. So that's all very, very strange indeed. That's the joys of old cars. I've got the new water pump to go on somewhere, so that'll probably be one of the first jobs to do on the MGB, and then yeah, we'll take it from there really. But I suppose I should really see if I can just get it to run and see if there's a spark, see if the fuel's getting through, and see what's going on. Right, so now I do have a little bit of a dilemma, and maybe you could give me your thoughts on this in the comment section. Now, obviously this is a little Anglia 1952, all very original, totally original paint. Now, I really like the fact that it's faded and old looking, and it's what, 70 years now? Is it 70? 1952? Yeah, 70 years. But when it was really damp over the winter, it really did occur to me, because you do get a bit of dampness in here, that there is no protection on this paint whatsoever. And if it gets damp, it gets damp. There's no protection at all, whereas a shiny car would probably be polished and you'd have a layer of wax over it just to sort of preserve it all, nice invisible layer of wax to help preserve things. But this hasn't got anything at all. So what do? Do I still leave it, or do I have to try and protect this paintwork somehow so that it'll carry on being the original paint for many years to come? And this is a dilemma I've got. I really like the look of it as it is, but there's no denying that it's not very protected from damp weather, or if I got caught in a rain shower while I was out and about, you know, you can be at a show and it can start tipping it down partway through the day, so you just don't really know what's going to happen with the weather. So my dilemma is, do I leave it as it is, super original, and just accept that it will gradually deteriorate a little bit, or do I try and do something about keeping it original but try and protect the paint surface in some way, which inevitably would mean it takes on a bit of a shine, whereas to be honest I quite like it looking not shiny. And this is the dilemma I've got. Now, my approach that I'm thinking about doing, and let me know in the comments if you agree with this, is to do the following. I've used carnauba wax before, and that is great at cutting off the dead layer of paint, and that would make it a little bit more uniform, because as it is, it's a bit patchy where it's more faded in some places than others. You know, like the wings here, I've got a bit of a shine on them, sort of, whereas on the bonnet there's none at all, and you can probably hear how rough the surface is, which, you know, isn't the end of the world. But if I approach it with carnauba wax, it would make it slightly more uniform. And then what I would do, because if you just use that wax, it doesn't tend to stay, it doesn't create much of a surface to protect the paint very well, but it does cut the paint back so it's more uniform all over. And then the idea is to treat it with some boiled linseed oil. I know a lot of people use this for preserving old paintwork on hot rods and that kind of thing, and I've used it here and there on things I've had before, so that will protect it. You actually wipe it all over, it's an oil, you put it on, and it dries off. It doesn't stay sticky like a lot of oil, it sort of dries off to a sheen, so that would give it a slight shine, but more importantly it would provide a protective layer for the original paintwork, and it would just slow down any deterioration. Plus, just slopping on this oil with a rag and whatnot, you can actually sort of put it on a bit thicker where the joints are, so that the oil runs down into the seams, because the first place that a car like this will rust is on the seams. So that would seem to be a reasonable compromise. Again, here you can sort of gloop it on a little bit thicker, so the linseed oil runs down into here, then dries off. It doesn't fully dry, it stays flexible, but it does mean then that there's protection in these joints, and obviously the paintwork itself would have a layer over it to protect it in damp weather and when the winter comes around again. So that's the thinking, that's the dilemma. What do? Do I leave it as it is, or do I tidy the paintwork up a little bit so it's a little bit more uniform, then apply some boiled linseed oil just to protect the whole surface of the whole car? And it's a very easy thing. You can just keep topping it up as and when you go, maybe once a year, just give it a wipe over with the linseed oil. And like I say, unlike normal oil, it dries off mostly, probably 80%, and it doesn't go sticky, so it doesn't attract dust and dirt and things like that. So that's what I'm thinking of doing. But let me know in the comments if that's the way you'd approach it. What would you do to help preserve what is a very original car? I'd be interested to read your thoughts. Well, just as a quick update, I cleaned up the plugs. They were a bit sooty, a bit damp, and it started straight up again. So that's all that was. But anyway, now I'm going to have a look at the water pump, because that was screaming its head off now. It didn't sound very happy at all. So next job, get that pump off. I've also decided that I'm going to take off this auxiliary air pump here, which is all part of the old emissions gear for the American market. It doesn't do anything. It's all been disconnected anyway, so it doesn't actually serve any purpose other than to make accessibility to the alternator underneath it very, very difficult. So this, I think, can come off and go in a box of goodies. The original box of bits and pieces, the old emissions gear that it had when it was new, but I think it can go in there, because all that's happening is it's just making it really, really hard to take this belt off or even adjust it. It's a bit slack anyway, so that needs adjusting. But to get at the bolts for the alternator, which are down here, the accessibility is a bit of a nightmare with this air pump on there, and as that doesn't do anything, I think it can probably come off. I might hang it back on just for appearance's sake once I've finished, but it doesn't actually do anything, so it can stay with the car. But as so much of the emissions gear has already been taken off, if this stays off, it won't be the end of the world, I don't think. However, before I do anything, I think I've deserved a little sit down. There's been a lot of pushing and shoving today, so I'll rest my aged bones for a few minutes on this chair, and then I'll crack on with the bee. I think I'll wrap this video up. I'm going to go and have a tinker with this. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. Plenty more videos on the channel, and there'll be more videos along very, very soon. So bye for now.